Hey kids, it's Old Man shouting at clouds, and now with others too. Chatting about the CFL is what they're going to do. Some have no contacts and others have no clues. Everyone will tell us all their quirky football views. Hear what Old Man and others know. It's the CFL Outsiders show.
Hey GT, what are we going to do this week?
Same thing we do every week, old man. Take over the CFL.
Hey kids, welcome back to another week of the CFL Outsiders. I remain, as always, your 100% unbiased, completely impartial, and rather sore co-host, Old Man, shouting at clouds. Joining me this week, as usual, is GT.
Hey everyone, how you doing? Had a great weekend. Just finished watching something that before we go much further, I just want to throw out there for everybody to know. On Amazon, if you haven't seen it yet, there's like an hour and a half tremendous documentary on Mr. Dress Up. Just finished watching it, and everybody knows Mr. Dress Up. You really should watch it and get some more background than you think you already know. It's really, really good, and it brings back tons of great memories for everyone. So just thought I would throw it out there.
Thank you for that. He was a classic.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a tickle trunk with him, wasn't it? That wasn't the Friendly Giant.
It sure was.
It's been a long time for me. And this week, unfortunately, MJ is off gallivanting again, but off the bench comes MJ2. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me back. It's been a sports weekend, so I feel like I have a book full of notes and my head remembers nothing. So we'll see where this goes.
You'll fit in well then. It's a lot to take in. Yes. I've got to say, as I started out saying, I'm a little sore now, and it just goes to show you've got to train if you're going to do some extreme stuff. And I obviously haven't spent enough time sitting on my arse, because that's 3 games on Labor Day was tough to be there. Or not Labor Day, on the Labor Day rematches, but anyway, the Saturday stuff.
Yeah, they kept calling it Super Saturday, and I thought, well, could we have not have had this spread out? But anyway.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that too, in that I hope that, I know that's the last one of this year. I'm pretty positive it's the last one of this year. And it's not good. I only watched 2 games, the first and the last, because the 2 in between, the first on Friday night and the last game, because that was obviously the Stampeders game. But the 2 other ones, I had things to do on the middle of a Saturday afternoon. And then by the time was over, I wasn't interested in going back. I just watched the highlights, and it was like, you lost. Like, double headers are fine from here on in, Friday and Saturdays, but 3 in a row in the middle of the afternoon, and when it's already a beautiful day, we finally have a wonderful fall happening, and there's just too many things to do for me anyway, to sit down for 9 hours.
I believe you're right. They did mention that it's the only one for this year, which I think is great. So I guess we're going to have probably either double headers on Friday and Saturday, I don't know if we have any 3 weekend games left. And then the only other exception will probably be on Thanksgiving, because I think they'll probably do a game on Sunday or Monday there. Probably Monday.
Yeah, that they've made that now the Ottawa, Montreal Labor Day. So that's the Thanksgiving, and I like that. Again, that's that Thanksgiving afternoon, Monday. And I like the idea that those 2 teams get that rivalry game in on a holiday when people can sit down and watch it.
Hopefully I guess 6 weeks left, basically. Well, more than 6 weeks, but 6 games left. So,
well, I mean, the season's just started, right?
It feels like it, and at the same time, we're in the playoff run. So it's been fun. I'm going to start out today with a bit of a rant. Are you ready to rant? I listened to the folks on the 3 Down podcast, their show this week, and something they said kind of got to me just a little bit. So, this is it. I'm talking to you folks, specifically to John Hodge and J.C. Abbott. And I'll start with a question, guys. In your news aggregator, do you have many science sites? Do you get new science stories? If you do, you might be familiar with headlines that say things like, gigantic creature with frightening claws discovered in the Philippines. Then you go on in to find out what it's about, and it turns out that there's dozens of tiny shrimp species in the area that are 1 or 2 millimeters long. And now they've discovered a new gigantic 1 centimeter long species. I enjoy reading the articles because I'm interested in that stuff. But the point is they're using the term gigantic in a way that, yeah, it's technically correct, but they know it evokes an entirely different image to get clicks. So it's clickbait. They could describe the creature with terms that conjure up a more accurate description, but that apparently wouldn't receive as much attention. So they play the game. What does this have to do with you, Three Down Nation, JC and John? Well, I've been around football for over 55 years now. And in all that time, a headshot has always been defined as striking the crown of your helmet into your opponent's head, usually the side of the head, with an intent to injure, often called an ear hole. That's the common and accepted definition. That's what most fans will envision when they hear the term headshot. You chose to use the unnecessarily sensationalist term to mislead and draw clicks to your site when your article on Jack's injury featured headshot in the title. You knew this headline, suggesting a deliberate intent to injure, would mislead the public and would also draw more engagement to your site than a headline saying, Collaros leaves the game with apparent neck-head injury. You chose the more sensational form. That's the very definition of clickbait, which is fine. You're a business. You want to get your product out there. So you use the clickbait. But then you're challenged on it, and you talk about it in the show. And do you man up? Do you say, yeah, we do that, because our writing is good enough that we know once people come to the article, they'll enjoy it and they'll get them back? No. You decide to get offended. You tell us how all offended you are that people are talking about clickbait in your articles. And then you try to weasel out by suddenly, arbitrarily, and unilaterally redefining headshot to something totally new and different. Anytime helmets touch, that's a headshot. I got to tell you, like you, I am offended. Not that you would use a clickbait headline, but rather that you're not man enough to admit it, and you think your followers are stupid enough that we won't see through your defensive and inane justification. Do better. And that's about it. That's what I've got to say to the boys at Three Down. Any thoughts?
Interesting, because this week I just deleted that podcast without even listening to it, so I didn't hear any of that. And I didn't really look at it because I knew it was going to be clickbait driven because it's coming after a Rider win. And no offense, but they clickbait Rider fans like nobody's business because they know that's the most adamant fan base and that's their business. And so that's what they do. So yeah, I knew, I just went next because I wasn't even going to listen to it. So I'm not surprised by your, what's the word I want to use here, not to say, but by your disapproval and disappointment of their reporting in this instance.
Yes. Well, it was specifically that they started the show by basically whining how everyone was accusing them of clickbait, and then spent probably 10, 15 minutes trying to justify it.
Hello, that's all they do. That's all they do.
No. Yeah,
and like I said, that's fine. They need to get people to the site. That's how they make their living. I don't mind they do that, but don't try to hide from it.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's what everybody that's on the internet does. That's the only thing you can do that gets you noticed. So yes, when we say something, and now we're on Instagram, thanks to MJ, and we're doing the shorts that you were putting out, those are clickbaits. Those are driving.
Yes,
I get that. Absolutely. However, you don't defend it. It is what it is. It's business. That's what you do. They keep talking about how they're professional reporters and that's their jobs. Well, then own up to it. If that's your job, that's what you're doing. Then, that's your business. That's what drives your business.
In my job, words matter. So the fact that you're using those words and someone calls you out and you don't change, that's the whole role of having, maybe not an editor, but someone there to say, there would have been a better word choice. What's the actual truth? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, they were saying, well, it's a short headline. We have to do something. It's just admit it. And you're right, GT. We do. That's the whole point. We put the clips out there hoping someone will see that in 1 minute and go, maybe I should watch the rest of that show.
Right.
You know, it's what you do. It's how it works.
Well, we'll hold
I hope
MJ.
we don't completely misrepresent ourselves. Sorry, MJ, go ahead. Catch you
No,
off
I
there.
just said we're going to keep MJ accountable on Instagram. We won't let her have this moment.
Yeah.
Well, she can go right
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead. Clickbait all you want.
Sure. I'm sorry she's not here this week to tell us more about it and get more credit. But yes, that is the big announcement. And when she's back next week, we'll have her talk about sort of the profile or whatever she wants to. But MJ's put in a lot of good work and got us on Instagram. And I have no idea how it works. So I'm very
Soft
happy
start.
she did that.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Soft opening, yeah.
Moving on, we'll do a quick little bit about my fantasy update. I lost this week, I think. The official standings from the league aren't out yet, so I don't know where I'll end up. I picked Nathan as my quarterback and didn't have a lot of other support that was helpful, so I ended up with 73 points. Travis from over at 2 and Out got 83 points and beat me by 10 points. Did you put a team together, G?
I did. I was worse. I think probably most people had a bad week unless you decided for some obscure reason to go somewhere else. But I think most people were leaning towards where you went with Nathan believing that they could do that because I did 61 points. It was terrible. It was the worst week I've had so far. I picked all the wrong players. I had Nathan Rourke. I had Kevin Hatcher. I had Dedrick Mills. I had Austin Mack. I had STR. I had Arkell Smith for the Elks. I don't even think he played. So yeah, that's how bad my team.
Yeah, and it was similar. In the league, I got to say, there were only, I think, of the 17 of us, I think there were only 3 players over 100 points.
Yeah.
And the top player had about 112 because he took Dustin Crum as the quarterback.
Wow.
Talk about lucking out. So anyway, it wasn't a good week for me. I'm hoping I'm still in the playoffs. I haven't even looked yet to tell you the truth, who I've got next week. I'll tell you on Thursday if you check, or Friday now, if you check into Oldman Plays CFL Fantasy, where I give my tips and advice. So that's about it, though. Few news items. Couple of injuries to start with. The one with Calgary. Did you want to talk about that, JT?
No, I can touch on it if you like. I mean, it was there was a couple of injuries in that game for Calgary, and one before the game. So Hutchins didn't start as well. But the big one, of course, was late in the game when Flo Ormolade went down, and we've now found out that he's out for the year with an ACL and won't be back. Obviously, that's huge. He was the guy that they brought over. The big trade, and it had paid off. And it really was. He was getting double teamed. It allowed Hutchins to get to the quarterback and allowed the other guys to get there on the defensive line. So it's a huge loss. They need to find somebody to make that up. Right now, I see that they went out and signed a guy named Daniel Joseph, Canadian, that was drafted a few years ago, bounced around the NFL for a little bit. The XFL last year was in both BC and Toronto for a few games. So he's a guy. I don't think he's no, as I posted on the Stamps fan site, he ain't no Flo, No. And then they have Sean Peterson Jr., who's looked pretty good in limited action a couple over the last few games. He wasn't playing much early in the year, but in the last 2 games, he's come in and looked pretty good. He was the guy that leveled Trevor Harris in that Saskatchewan game 2 weeks ago when he came free. So he might be an option, but they definitely need to start looking around to find somebody, and that's going to be a huge hole to fill. And what was, people were talking about as the best line in the league, all of a sudden isn't even close.
I look forward to during the game talking about Jalen Hutchinson being out with it. But yeah, that has got to hurt them somewhat. We'll see what happens. I don't expect them to just collapse because of that. And you did mention, I forgot about it, there was another injury. They lost their left tackle, did they not, as well?
Right. Yes, they did. They lost Emery early in the game and had to shift Williams out to tackle and bring in the guy whose name I can never pronounce, Jack Kurak. He was.
I know what you mean.
You know who I mean? Yeah, and he's been on the practice roster on and off throughout the year, injured list, whatever. He's another Canadian offensive lineman that's had some experience throughout the league. It was in Edmonton last year, but he's, again, not a starter, and Williams has never played tackle before. So hopefully that's only a short-term thing, and that was the other key. So they were playing without their 2 American tackles from 2 weeks ago. They did have Nichols, the rookie, in at 1 tackle spot, and he's played well all throughout the year, or when he's come in a few games. But yeah, there's some injuries starting to add up there for sure. For sure. Now, I did see a note this week again on the board that Dickinson was on 770 CHQR in Calgary and said that he doesn't feel like Hutchins is out for long. He probably will be back in the next game, and also that there's a couple of other guys that are coming back as well. So it may help a little bit.
Yeah, they'll get tested the way everybody does by injuries this time of year.
The good thing is that they've built up a bit of a cushion at 8-4 now, so that they had 3 games clear of Winnipeg and 4 games clear. 4 games, or only 3 games. 4 games still, I think, clear of Edmonton. So they're comfortably in second. I don't think they're going to catch the Riders now, unfortunately, for home field in the West final, but they should have home field in the West semifinal at least. So they should be able to manage to get through, unless VA continues to play like they has the last couple of games, and then we'll see. We can talk about that during the game review.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get there. And you're right. Sitting from the Riders' side, very appreciative of the Elk for giving an extra game of cushion, but I'm still not comfortable by any means. 6 games, a lot of stuff could happen. You don't know what the weather's going to be, who's going to get an injury, what's going to happen. So fingers are crossed, and that's about the best here now.
I feel like Calgary was one of the only games where there wasn't like terrible conditions. So for someone to have some sort of a leg injury in that game, how unfortunate. All those games with rain. Yeah.
Yeah, that was some of the story of the weekend. And there was also one other big injury that everybody's talking about. So we're going to talk about it too. And MJ's going to lead us into the discussion.
What do these folks have in common? Dave Dickinson, Matt Dunnigan, John Cornish, Shea Emery, Corey Banks, all guys that have had to leave the game because of concussions. And so I know the story going around, I think, is being overshadowed. So Zach's injury is a bit being overshadowed by what was said on the panel by Milt Stegall, this idea of Milt saying, if this was my son, he would not be playing another game. He needs to retire. And if I'm looking at this list of all of these players, head injuries are serious and something to be taken seriously. And it was interesting. Mike O'Shea, known for not giving out information and updating, he took issue with Milt Stegall specifically and said, don't speculate, trust our medical team. So this is a really interesting story because, it is Zach's personal injury. So is it our business? Well, maybe, yeah. But are we speculating? We can guess. He is listed as being out with a head injury. He was at practice today, Tuesday, but he didn't participate. So it's really interesting. I think what I'm trying to get at is, what's the language that we're using around head injuries? And are you blaming, I forget, was it Revis that hit him? And then you have O'Shea. So there's so many layers to the story of what's the actual injury. How are we talking about it? How the coach is sort of communicating that. And then everyone's opinion on what should happen next. I'm curious what you guys think. I don't really have an opinion per se. Maybe I do, but I'm curious what you think.
Okay. Well, why did you jump in first, GT?
Okay, well, again, I didn't watch the game live, but I did go back and make sure that I watched the hit because it is available as one of the, in news stories. So I watched it, and honestly, at first it was really solid. It reminded me of that same that I just mentioned when the guy from Calgary, when Sean Peterson leveled Trevor Harris. It looked like almost the exact same kind of hit, except that on the replay, you can see the helmet to helmet. I agree with you, what you mentioned earlier when you called it an ear hole, because that's exactly what I thought when I saw it. That was an ear hole. He got him right in the side of the helmet, not crown to crown, but actually on the side of the helmet. But it looked like he led mostly with his body and a heavy wrap around the ribs. And I thought at first it could have been more of a rib and upper body than an actual head injury. And until you see at the last minute, his head does kind of hit the ground. It doesn't take much to hit your head, especially when you've had a history like Zach has had. However, again, I have to give Michael Shea some credit because he came out and it's true. We're all jumping to conclusions. We jumped to conclusions the last time he got injured. We've been jumping to conclusions for 5 years. So it's going to happen. I get why it's going to happen, but we are jumping to conclusions. So in Mike O'Shea's defense, he's right. Let's wait and find out what the evidence is. And the other thing that O'Shea said in that interview that I read, at least I read it, and maybe I misread it, but he said Zach might even be ready to play this week. If he's saying that, they're not yet 100% sure. Now, O'Shea's also Mr. Look the other way, nothing going on here, move along, right? There may be concussion protocol that he has to go through, but it may not be a concussion. And it may be a neck stinger. It may be a re-aggravation of the neck injury, shoulder injury that he's had throughout this year. So I don't think we need necessarily to jump right away to it's the end.
Well, it's interesting because when he went down, O'Shea was the one who threw the challenge flag to see if there was a roughing the pass call or that was missed. And I think, like at first glance, it did look like it was a clean sack. And even Revis who hit him. So it was a bit of a surprise watching it on the replay because I missed it the first time as well. Like you said, O'Shea's keeping cards close to the vest on what it is. It says head injury, but is that a neck injury? So I'm curious what happens. So if he's at practice, what is the concussion protocol? How many days do you have to stay or be okay? That I don't know.
I'm not sure of the official rules, but if they are doing anything the way a professional league should be, all of these players at the start of the year should be going in and doing a baseline concussion test, which is a computer test of reaction, reflexes, knowledge, ability to think, stuff like that. And then after a concussion, one of the ways that you can determine that they're ready to come back is when they get closer to that baseline. It's a very scientific way of doing it. So hopefully they've done that. And hopefully what O'Shea says is right. We should trust their medical staff. My feeling on the hit, first of all, I wouldn't have called that an ear hole hit. To me, an ear hole is going for the helmet with force. And what I saw was a penalty, definitely. He came in, he aimed with the shoulder, his helmet came up and hit it, and there was a bounce. I didn't think it was enough of one I saw to have caused that injury. I think if it's a concussion, it came with the hitting the ground, because came down and his neck snapped over pretty hard and his head did hit the ground. Okay. Now, earlier in the season, the first 2 times he was injured, they called that a neck injury. So now they're calling it a head, but if it was a neck thing, that could have aggravated it just sort of with the whiplash kind of thing too.
I was going to ask you, just because we're trying to be clear, are the Bombers calling it a head injury? Because I thought the Bombers were still calling it a neck injury, and only everyone else is calling it a head injury.
It showed up on the injury report today as a head injury from the Bombers. Okay. So take that for what it's worth with it. So, so I think the penalty wasn't called. It probably should have been. Honestly, 4 or 5 years ago, I think that may have been wiped off because it wasn't a real hard intended smash to the head. But Zach was injured. But then we get to the other thing, and this is where everyone's speculating. Is it head? Is it neck? Is it whatever? And again, I agree with Coach O'Shea. We don't know. They don't have to tell us. Zach doesn't have to tell us. And frankly, Zach's a grown man. My feeling on it is Zach's a grown man. If he is putting himself in danger of causing permanent harm to himself and putting that on himself and his family, if it happens, he's the one that has to live with the consequences. So yes, in that regard, he should be the one that gets to say, along with the medical staff, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Right.
What I thought was significant was when Milt addressed his comments, he didn't address them to the coaching staff or the GM. He addressed them to the board of governors and the president. And I think that was because with this situation where all this is going on, and whether or not Zach is as fragile as he appears to be, That is the situation they're in. And I could see something, whether it's head or neck. If the neck is not just muscular, if there's anything skeletal in there that's hurting it, I could see either of those causing him some type of permanent disability, and his family coming back on the Bombers and saying, you played him when you knew he was in this state, and launching a lawsuit. So their head office may get involved. It's
Well,
possible.
and that was, I think, who was it? Corey Banks filed a lawsuit because of the concussions that he sustained and felt like he didn't get the right advice and medical advice when he was playing. It's interesting to think, okay, it's the player making their own personal choices. It's the team making a decision that's best for their team and that player. But then the league also has to think, okay, well, what's best? So there's so many layers to this injury. I think you're right. It's not just he got hit issue.
Yeah. I mean, even take the football out of it. If you're a construction worker and you get injured on site and you go through the rehab and stuff, and then you come back to the company and say, okay, I'm ready to go to work, they're going to want to see doctor's certificates and everything, because they know if they let you back in before you're ready, they're liable. That's just my thought on it.
Yeah, there is some protocol that they have to go through, and the league's going to force them. I agree with you, Oldman, that they're going to have to enforce it. Otherwise, there's a legal, there's a legal matter there that could come up. But if the doctors clear him and then he says, okay, now I'm medically cleared and I want to play, then you also cannot stop him from playing. You can say, you can do it. Sure, you can do it. The team can say, no, we don't feel you're ready, and we're not going to let you play. But I'm just saying they're not going to. He's still their guy. They're not going to. And as we talked about last week, and as MJ said last week, it's always about the win this week, not about the long term.
That was my point. I think in a civil suit where it's not like a burden of evidence having to prove guilty, you could make a good case for that at this point, the Bombers if he plays for another 45 years and nothing happens, it's great. But if he goes in and somewhere between now and the end of the season, he gets a permanently disabling injury, I think that you could convince a jury that the team knew that was possible and should be liable.
Well, and it's really interesting. Yeah, Milt, but some of his comments were really emotional, like bringing up his son, right? And so I think maybe that's from his own experience, bringing in what is football. Yeah, it's this game that we love, but also, yeah, you might be cleared to play. But should you, that was almost his question to Zach, but he did it in public, which I don't know if that's the right space to do it. It was just really interesting that he said, if that was my son.
I feel that too. I have the personal experience. My middle son was a very good football player, took a extremely serious concussion his last year of high school, and we went through the whole thing and made sure that he was fully prepared before he got back in. He sat out most of the season. He did play another 2 years, one of what do they call it here? I think midgets, the 18 to 20-year-olds, and he played a year of junior as well with the Okanagan Sun. And in the end, I don't think those made it any worse, but he still suffers some things from that. And it was a serious, serious concussion. He was out, and it took him about 4 days to even be able to cognate properly, to think at all. In fact, we had to pin a note to his chest, actually, saying what had happened in a few short sentences, because he'd fall asleep and wake up and have no idea what was going on and start panicking. So it's serious. You don't want to mess around. Anyway, I think we've covered that. Anything else, or any thoughts we've missed? All right. I was going to say then, this is just a quick sort of observation on my part. They called this sort of the Labor Day rematch weekend or whatever. I think there was a little bit of a Labor Day hangover, because it wasn't quite as strange as Labor Day. But you think about it, we had 2 underdog wins that we didn't expect at all. We had 2 offensive pass interferences, when I don't think you'd normally see one a year. And Bo Levi rushed for a touchdown for the first time in 10 years.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of that Labor Day weirdness still hanging on around there.
Yeah. Well, and then you have quarterbacks being pulled and put back in. You've got missed field goals from guys who
All over the
should
place.
always have them. So as soon as I saw Labor Day Hangover, I laughed because I have my own notes of exactly that. I just didn't know what to call them.
Yeah, exactly. And the one kicker who's been terrible all year hits all of his field goals.
Every single one. Was it 5 for 5?
5 for 5. We don't talk converts around here. Okay. Anyway, so it was a good wild weekend, and we're going to talk about it. But before we get to that, a couple other things. It was announced today that the Argonauts have activated Chad Kelly, but aren't saying if they'll dress him for the game, and have named Nick Arbuckle as the starter for this week. So that's the news. Anything worth talking about on it? Any thoughts?
I am going to channel my inner MJ1 and just say I'm done talking about Chad Kelly.
Yeah, I think it's the best decision that they could make. I think it's the right decision at this point in time. It's also a surprising decision, but it's the one. Dinwiddie said it's week to week, so they're going to ease him back in. So he might, depending on how the outcome of the game, he might even play a few plays throughout the game. He might play a quarter. Who knows, right? When he comes back in, but I suspect by the following week, he's probably going to be behind center.
I'm curious how players respond and react, because very different style of leadership. But I don't know if that translates. If you're good at throwing a ball and threading it and hitting your receivers, I'm curious to see if he's doing well. Do you stick with, yeah.
Yeah. Dinwiddie also said in the same, or at least in the same article, he was quoted as saying, make no mistake, it's Chad Kelly's team. As soon as he's ready, he'll be in there. So, and then I guess we'll see how the players react. All right. Yeah. Something else here that I get to learn about now too, because the both MJ and GT said to me not too long before the show, oh, we've got to talk about this, and I've heard nothing about it. Something around the Bills. Which of you wants to tell me about this?
Well, actually, when I looked at it, MJ, you had all of the notes written out, everything that basically you had sent us a recap of that email or of the story in 3 Down and on TSN and what was put out by, I guess, the Bills and MLSE today. What it comes down to is that our friends at the company I hate the most in the world have decided that, again, they're going to revitalize this Bills thing. But the Buffalo Bills in Toronto that they tried a few years ago when they were robbing people left, right, and center. And people surprisingly love to be robbed. They just, in this market, they love to be robbed. You can just charge whatever you want for anything that has big time attached to it, and they will just fall over themselves to give you money. They did that for, in that series a few years ago when the Bills played some games in Toronto. And now the Sun has decided that he will follow his dad's footsteps and revitalize the Bills in Toronto through the back door. And he's calling it something else, and he's trying to do something else, but it's the same thing. It's basically invading the Toronto and surrounding area all the way through with Buffalo Bills paraphernalia and NFL paraphernalia. It allows MLSE in an agreement, a partnership, love the term, a partnership with the Buffalo Bills to be able to sell paraphernalia from the Bills at all of their outlets, including during all of their MLSE games. So at Raptor games, Leaf games, and at TFC games and at Argo games, you will now have in their stores Buffalo Bills apparel. You will now have, they have set up this thing so they are now doing a coaching clinic for youth where it's going to be set up so that apparently 200 kids have already done something today where they have Buffalo Bills sponsored players, coaches, and Argo coaches. I don't know about Bills players, but Argo's players as well as
I think
some of the Bills
players.
Yeah. Okay, some players as well coming in, and basically they're just taking over the territory, and MLSE and Rogers is fully funding this and fully paying for it. If it's a partnership, my question is there Argo material at the Bills store? Are they doing anything in Buffalo selling CFL football? Are they doing anything at all to promote the Argonauts in upper state New York? Are they doing anything at all to promote the Tiger Cats in upper state New York? They are doing nothing. This is sorry, I'm ranting now, but this is what it is. It's a scam. It's a typical Rogers, what is left of MLSE scam to just line their pockets again and do what they can to attach themselves. I said it when they talked about putting this temporary stadium in Toronto at the Downsview site they're now holding concerts at. It's conveniently enough called the Rogers Stadium there. And I just said they're going to weasel their way into getting that land that's supposed to be for housing. And that's where, if they can build a stadium, that's where they will build a stadium. And they will try to weasel their way into getting us to pay for it. And I hope that this city says no. You know what? I've got an old button from the 90s that was relevant then and maybe not so much now, but I might just put it back on. It says the CFL is alive and well. The NFL can go to hell. I've still got the button, and I might just start wearing it. They're going to actually, at the Argo game 2 weeks from now, I think it's 2 weeks from now, they're going to actually give out Bills paraphernalia to every fan that walks in and try to sell this as being something that this is good for the Argos. It's not good for the Argos at all. No. It's just, again, Rogers trying to attract their own and sell their own stuff so that they can then eventually weasel their way into hopefully either getting the Bills ownership in Buffalo or getting the Bills and moving them here, which is what their ultimate goal has been for years upon years upon years.
Decades. Yep.
Yeah.
End of rant.
My rant is this idea that they are, and this is maybe the smallest part of it, but for me, this really got me, is they are hosting all of these watch parties. Well, are you hosting it for the Argos, or are you only hosting it for the Bills? And you have a chance to win Bills tickets. And so it all is about the Bills in Toronto. What about Argos packages? What about the soccer? What about the basketball? Like, when you wrote scam, all I immediately thought was, and I think I emailed this to you, follow the money. Like, is this what's good for the game?
No.
I personally am with you, GT. I'm on your bandwagon.
Yeah.
More pins.
There's nothing here that's good for the Argos. I don't care how they couch it. I don't care what they say. There is nothing here unless they come out tomorrow with a clarification that all those points that I just mentioned about Canadian football being talked about and being shown and being highlighted and being taught the differences in upper state New York and Argo stuff being available. I'd like to know how if the Bills numbers are down this year, if the Seahawks numbers are down this year for people not crossing the border, because it is thousands of people that cross the border every year to go to those games. And given the nonsense at the borders between these two countries these days, do you really want to risk crossing the border?
Quicker sometimes. It was quicker sometimes to drive down to Buffalo than it was to Toronto, depending on traffic. Wow, we used to go down to watch Sabres games.
Sure.
Well, the tickets were cheaper, but I just think, what is this going to do for the Argos? Like, I hate the Argos. Argos suck, but I need them to be in the league because they are my rival.
Yeah, we shouldn't lose them. And the thing is, I don't really have a lot to say about this. I'm not surprised. This isn't new to me. I'm not the least bit surprised. I don't understand how people get so sucked into the glitz of the NFL. Because I'll be honest, I got bored with it a couple of years ago. And I don't think I've watched an NFL game in probably 2.5 years until yesterday. My middle spawn came to me and said, "Did you see that Buffalo Baltimore game? What a fantastic game." And I said, "No, I haven't seen it yet." He said, "Let me show you I don't watch NFL." He said, "So let me send you the link. You watch this. This is a great game." I watched it. It was as good as an NFL game could get. I believe Buffalo came back and won 41-40 in the last seconds of the game.
Yep. A CFL finish.
It was so boring as hell. 2-yard run after 2-yard run after 2-yard run. Just nothing going on at all. The odd pass there. And the 45-second time clock, so long, it's like sitting at a lecture listening to them to talk to it. And then you get into the last 2 minutes of the game when it's supposed to be exciting, and it's a continual 1 minute stoppage, 30-second stoppage,
and then
30-second stoppage, because they're both trying to stop the clock. Why? Here's a tip for the NFL. You want to make your game better? Drop those 3 timeouts, because a timeout is there when you need to do strategy, and you're not using them for that. And change it to every team gets 1 timeout and 2 clock stoppages. They stop the clock, and then you go right back in and snap the ball. We don't have to sit around all this time. It is such boring football, and that's a high-scoring, exciting NFL game.
For sure.
How do people look at that and then look at the CFL and say, oh, that's so much better than the CFL?
Follow the money, as we talked about earlier. It's all about the money. And listen, I don't watch the NFL, so I will make no comment on the league or on the game itself. I'm not upset with the NFL. I'm not upset with the Bills. I get it. That's their job is to expand their footprint. It amazes me nonstop how people will just fall over themselves in running towards things because they're told they're supposed to. As you talked about, MJ, the tickets in Buffalo for the Sabres, if they're a third of the price of the Leaf, we used to drive all the way to Detroit, back and forth from Toronto to Detroit to see Raptors games because I could pay for gas, pay for ticket, pay for food, and not spend the price for two of us and not spend the price of one ticket to a Raptors game.
Yeah.
The Toronto sports market is, other than the Argos, is the most expensive sports market in North America. It is ridiculous what they charge. They were charging $1,000 a ticket Canadian when they wanted to they brought the Bills here for those games. And you know what Ted Rogers said? We'll charge them whatever they want. They're going to pay it. It's the NFL. That was his quote. Quote, unquote.
And I wonder where the league comes down on this. Like, I know, wouldn't they have some kind of, maybe not rules, but guidelines? Like, I'm so curious to see if there is any sort of word from CFL or like, what's the commissioner think about this? Because it's not promoting the game. It's about the merchandising. So I wonder who has the rights to the merchandise. Anyway,
But it's not their merchandising. It's NFL and Bills merchandise.
Yeah. Well, they're making some crossover merchandise at one of the games. So they're having this, I forget what it was called, this big football themed game day where they're doing some Bills and Argos together merchandise.
As a ticket holder for the Argos, and I hope every Argo fan is insulted, I'm going to throw that as far as I can back onto the field. That is the most outrageous thing they were doing in this whole scam, is that they're not only scamming everyone that's an NFL fan, they're trying to scam us and make us believe that we should be excited by this. How dumb do you think we are? We know what this is. Give it up. And then to insult us on top of that by giving us a towel or a T-shirt with the Argos and Bills on it, that's just a straight out slapped it in the face to every single Argos fan at that game. It's unbelievable.
The thing is, the CFL is too small of a league to have the power to do anything about it with MLSC. They're a huge company, and that's just reality. But they should be able to, because, I mean, think about it. If the New York Giants suddenly, I don't know what the top soccer teams in the world anymore are. I'm still, Man United used to be great, so that's what I think is great. But if the New York Giants suddenly started a big program of selling Man United merchandise at their store and weaving it into their games and everything, do you think the NFL would put up with that? It wouldn't happen.
So why is the CFL okay with this?
Because they're a smaller league and they don't have the financial power to clout. They need MLSC more than MLSC needs them.
And then devil's advocate me says, I need the Argos to survive so that the Ticats have someone to
Listen,
hate.
I don't think that we're going on a long time about this, and I don't think we intended to, but I think it's, as I said, it's the most important news of the week, in my opinion. And I don't think this is about the Argos surviving. I don't think this is the death knell. I don't have any of those kind of concepts, because the reality is, the NFL, they are never coming to Toronto. Why would they come to Toronto? They own the marketplace anyways. Toronto does nothing for their broadcasting television revenue, because it doesn't matter in their ratings, because it doesn't count in their US ratings. So adding a market in Canada means absolutely nothing to the ratings in America. So you do not add any money or any funding. The only way it makes money for the NFL as a league is in the franchise rights. Do you know what an NFL franchise costs these days to buy? About $5 billion. Do you know what an NFL stadium builds about to cost now? About $3 billion. Those are American funds. That's $8 billion American. That becomes about $12 billion Canadian. Do you think MLSE is going to spend $12 billion? Luck. They're not spending that kind of money. They would rather somehow buy the Bills and keep them in New York because that makes more sense to them. Because unless Toronto gets an Olympics, there's no way the government is spending money to build them a stadium, and that's the only way they're going to get a stadium built. Rogers is not building their own.
I see you have feelings on this. And I don't disagree. I mean, why would MLSC try to bring a franchise in if they can start getting some of the merchandising money by partnering with Buffalo anyway?
Yeah, the money. They're making money off of this.
This is not a new topic. It was back in the 1970s that the first came up, and the government stepped in and said, no NFL teams in Canada. I don't think today's government would do that, but that's how long the story is.
See, that was actually the old WFL, the World Football League, and the Toronto Northmen. That was the team that they were going to bring here initially, and that was also at that time, again, strangely enough, the Bassett family that owned the Leafs at the time, and that was also the owner of the Argos. The same guys that own one football team want to kill it by bringing in another one, and then they moved to, and the Liberals, the federal Liberals who were in power at the time, brought in a law that said you were not allowed to bring a Canadian or an American, not an NFL, but an American football team into Canada. And that law has since rescinded, so it's no longer in place. But then they moved to, I believe it was to Memphis, and became the Memphis Southmen of the World Football League back in the day.
I'm going to have to double check on that because my memory is absolutely horrendous, but I remember it very specifically as an NFL team. And the part that makes me think that still may be true is there was American teams in Canada. Montreal Machine of the World Football League was here.
That was post that law being rescinded.
Oh, okay. All right. So, yeah, well, anyways, story.
Yeah,
we're losing people.
I went to
you're right. Reminiscing, we're losing people. Okay. Right. I think we're all disgusted, and we'll leave it there.
Yes, all disgusted.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, come on, support the team that you own. Anyway, speaking of teams, not the Argos, but Eastern teams, the other bit of news here is that apparently there's been a miraculous healing of MBT's elbow, and the Alouettes have pulled him off the 6-game list, which I assume means he's probably going to be starting against the Riders this weekend, and I'm not unhappy. Any thoughts? No, we told people, move on. So, week or two back, the other MJ, gave us a bit of a game to play about giving us 5 names and ranking them blind. So
yeah,
MJ2 is going to do the same.
Yeah, I felt inspired. They had a really this is like more of like a memory game, if I'm being honest. I don't know if this is true yet, but Trevor Harris may have or is 1 touchdown away from coming to 200 touchdown passes. And so in honor of Trevor Harris almost breaking the 200 number, I have a game here. So number 1 would be the most touchdown passes, and number 5 would be like the least. So I'm going to give you 5 names and see if you can put them most touchdown passes. And I've got one from everyone's team here. First, we'll start with Trevor Harris. So 1 to 5. 1 being the most.
Most for his team or the most in the league?
Oh, overall, in the league, in league history.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes.
Career touchdown passes.
200 career, so 199, almost 200.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm going to put here. He could be anywhere from 1 to 5. I'm going to go. So 5 is high or low?
5 is the least amount of touchdowns. 1
least amount
is
of
the
touchdowns.
Most.
Yeah, I'll say 4.
And I will as well. That's where I think.
Okay. Your next one is Zach Collaros.
I'm trying to remember the stats when they showed them that a week or so ago. They were on the screen and they were right beside each other. So I'm going to put Zach at 3.
Yeah, if Trevor's 4, Zach would have to be 3, I think.
Okay.
I think there was one other in between them, but I'm going to play the odds.
Okay. Anthony Cavillo, AC.
He's got a lot of records. Does he have the most touchdown passes? I'm going to go 1 just in case. And if you throw out a name suddenly that drives me crazy, I'm going to get 3.
I'm going with 2.
Okay. Bo Levi Mitchell.
Well, sitting on the list the way we've got it so far, I've got to put him at 2. He's certainly not 5.
Yeah, I've got to go back to 5, though. because I'm saving my number one for some guy
And
like, Jerry Keeling.
oh, he's not on the list. Our last name, Henry Burris.
Well,
okay. I'll see. Yeah. All right. So I
only have one left, and I think I'm wrong there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I would have. Yeah. I'll have to put him at number one. It's going to be wrong. So I played the game wrong, but that's okay.
I think both of you got pretty close. So Anthony Cavillo, number one, 455. Henry Burris, number two, 373. Zach Caleros, number three, with 200. Trevor Harris, not quite 200. And then Bo Levi Mitchell is number five. And I didn't have time to look up how many, but yeah.
I thought Bo had more than Zach and Trevor.
I'm going to have to look at the list again. So again, I am basing this on the TSN numbers. So if it is Bo Levi having more, then I will be glad to say I was wrong.
Well, I'm not questioning you. When I think about it, it makes sense that those Calgary teams scored a lot of rushing touchdowns when Bo was quarterback. He threw a lot, but when it got down to the touchdowns, there was a lot of running touchdowns. So I suspect you're right.
And those are all time. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
I didn't write down the whole list. But
so there's again, I would have thought that there was going to be unclassic kind of, as I said, a Jerry Keeling, a Peter Lisk, a Normie Kwong, a Doug Flutie, from the who were thrown, and from the 60s where guys played for years and years and years, even though their scores were not as inflated. I would have thought that they would have made in that list in the top five.
So this is the TSN list that they had. Anthony Calvillo, number one, then Damon Allen, Henry Burris, Ron Lancaster, Zach Caleros, Dieter Brock. Henry Burris.
Well,
no, Trevor Harris. I already said Henry Burris. Trevor Harris. And then I added Bo Levi Mitchell because I wanted a tie cat on there.
Which is pretty cool when you think that, two or three of them are playing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Damon Allen was the name that I wasn't sure if he might have had more than Calvillo. And the other thing is, I didn't think Lancaster, but he was sitting out there, and then Sam the Rifle was back there somewhere too. So good game, MJ. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hopefully, people played along and did a little better than I did. All righty. I think we're getting to the point now where we're an hour in, so we have had fun talking about these things. We've got games to talk about too, though. So let's see what we can do here. So the first one was the Friday night thing. The BC went into Ottawa, and everyone, including myself, I think everybody in the entire pick'em picked BC in this one. I've heard nothing but complaints about the fact. In fact, listening around to other people out there, going 2-2 this weekend, I think puts us in probably the top third of the pickers. I've heard so many people going, I went 4-0, I went 1-3, or 0-4, 1-3. Anyway, so we went into this game, and the first thing that occurred to me was I went to the pregame show, and TSN threw up, on their little promo card. You click on that. Here's where I go to the pregame show. Rod Smith hasn't done the pregame show in 5 years, and it's still his face sitting right there saying it. I think it's time to update that to Kate. But anyway, it was a weird game. I won't go through the whole thing with it, but it was another weather game. It was a dark and stormy night. Might have affected Nathan, might not have. Ottawa or BC looked like they were going to come out and run away with it. And then in the second half, their defense kind of crumbled, and we had a crumb back. That was a last-minute sort of thing. We'll go into a lot more detail, but I won't bother doing that. I'll let you guys talk about which parts of the game you liked or what you might have seen.
My favorite part happened before. Well, I've got three highlights before even the game. Number one, the coach's dog on the field that they were showing.
Oh, wasn't that adorable?
4 dogs. That Luke Wilson had to stand in the rain made me happy. What was my third thing? The crumback. Come on, Dwayne Ford. Like, Marshall Ferguson and Dwayne Ford should not be allowed to commentate together because they are so cheesy. I enjoyed it, though.
Yes. And if Luke is going to keep getting assigned games like that, he's got to work on his hair product.
Yeah. I've been saying that all year. It was interesting. I thought first quarter was like nothing going on at all. It was back and forth, but there was no excitement to it at all. I thought, again, is it just BC? Like Hatcher dropped a pass, McInnes dropped a pass, and then Hardy dropped a pass. And I thought, well, maybe it is the weather. Yeah, it wasn't a great game, but it was still somehow exciting. And then we had the ending that we all wanted. It's unbelievable, but it happened again, right? So, yeah, it was... And again, you can't blame Rourke. It is this defense in BC that just allows teams to they sat back and let that pass happen. They sat back again and just allowed Ottawa to come down the field, and they shouldn't be so passive. And I keep saying it, but Benavides is not the guy there.
Nope. Turf him, promote Ryan Phillips. You can do it under the salary cap.
I was going to say, like, the only people I really had written down on my game notes were Lewis, Crum, Milton, Pimpleton. And then I realized these are all Ottawa players. And I know BC did do, like, Masoli had 2 carries for 2 yards, everyone, just to let us all know. But I thought that for a game where my family tends to be more on the BC side and I pay attention to BC more, the names I had written down as being the most entertained by were the Ottawa players. And I think that's the first time this season I feel like I can say that.
Crum is I just love him. He looks like a great big, this is me, no disrespect to Dustin Crum, but he looks like a great big goof out there. He looks like he's just stumbling around with no idea of what he's doing. His running isn't this graceful glide or these sharp cuts or anything. It looks like he's about to fall over at any moment, and he gets ridiculous amounts of yards, and he's actually starting to turn into a passer. I mean, if they keep working his accuracy, who knows? He had mostly passable throws in that game, a few bad ones. One great throw, and he saved it for when he needed it, because that was with, what was it, something like 30 seconds left, or he got the 55-yarder to Pimpleton, and then they're in the end zone, convert, and they win. Just absolutely amazing. You can't blame Nathan for this loss, but he also did not contribute terribly well. He didn't have a great game, and that's one thing we'll talk about when we get to prediction for next week. I'm really struggling with it. Was it the Ottawa defense, or was it the game conditions? Because
I agree. He didn't look terrific by any means. It wasn't bad statistically, but there wasn't a lot of this game's exciting and he's just like on fire like he's been in a few other games, right? Yeah. It just was like they were either gonna manage to eke out a win or they were gonna blow it, and they blew it.
Yeah.
There was one point when I can't remember if it was Dwayne or Marshall was talking about Nathan, saying, well, the thing is with Nathan, you don't have to worry. He's the consummate professional and he'll sort this out. And as they're doing this, there's a shot of him with his helmet off, and he just looked like, I don't know.
Looked completely unprepared. I have on here, I have a note that just says, Rourke, lots of running around. Is he actually even doing anything? So, like, he got a bit of time, but where is he going? Like, in this kind of conditions, you need those short passes. So are those receivers coming back to make those plays happen? You can't always maybe rely. Like, I have on here a note, Eberhardt just kept getting hit in the middle consistently over and over. I don't know how many times he touched the football, but it just reminded me of, like, old time Dave Stala. Like, you could rely on him. And I thought, well, why aren't you doing some of those plays more and moving up the field instead of trying to make something bigger happen? Yeah, I felt that this was not Rourke's game at all.
Yeah, no, the whole team just did not, I didn't think, look sharp at all. And don't forget, they had a chance. I mean, we're not recapping all this, so hopefully the folks out there have seen the game. If not, we're kind of giving you an idea. But don't forget, with like a minute to go, or I don't think it was a minute 33, Ottawa turned it over on downs.
Yeah.
Yep.
And their defense held BC to a long field goal attempt, which they missed. Pimpleton returned it to the 40. They took an unnecessary roughness, or to the 30, I guess. Took an unnecessary roughness up to the 48, set up all that stuff. So full credit to Ottawa for what they did.
There were a few times when they got near the end zone where things were happening. Like, there was, I think it was in the third quarter, and I don't know if this one got called back on a challenge, but there was that fumble near the end zone. So there were some weird things happening that may have been weather related. But I also think, And maybe this is not all of the receivers' fault, but I do think that, like, how do you adapt to that into the game? And I don't think that BC had the answer to what Ottawa was bringing.
And don't forget that 7 or 6 of BC's points came on a punt return. So they weren't offensive points either. And I'll say this is one of the things that I always mark down in my notes, because I love football players that understand it's all about effort. You can put everything you've got into it and not have it go your way. But sometimes if you put everything you've got into it, it does go your way. And on that punt return, Dubois, the fullback for Ottawa, who was losing ground the whole way to Sevens McGee, did not let up until McGee crossed the goal line.
Yep.
You never know. Maybe he stumbles. Maybe something happens. And I love that kind of effort. That is pure football to me. Old coach coming out of me. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because TSN was saying, I forget who said it, that was their first special teams touchdown of the year. So if you're coaching against that, good on that guy for doing that rundown, because I don't know, like, you wouldn't assume that BC would do it, but they did it. But you didn't give up on
been great in the return game for a while.
The stat that blew me away and the comment that blew me away came up early and then came up again in the third quarter, and it changed in the third quarter. But in the second quarter, they said Ottawa has been down by at least 14 points in 8 of their 11 games. And I just went, that's unbelievable. And then in the third quarter, I think they changed it to down by 17 points in something like 9 games. And I went, what? How could it get worse? It was incredible that they've been down by that large an amount in almost every game of the year. And they've managed to somehow win 4. It's incredible. Give them credit. They don't give up. If nothing else, they don't give up.
During the halftime, I don't know who was doing the interview. Again, I have notes, but are they detailed? No. But it said and during the Red Blacks interview, it was the word execute in the locker room. So making sure you run down that special play all the way to the end. It's coming back. It's doing all of those things. Yeah, we are behind, but if we execute every play, everyone does their job properly. And so, that work ethic, I think, if you're used to losing, you got to have something, but it paid off in the end for them in this game. Like Lewis, he was blocking, he was receiving, doing all those things, executing all the plays.
Full credit to them. And Pimpleton took, I think it was an offsides penalty that cost him a big play earlier, and then he comes back with that catch. The other note, this is the last thing I have to say about this game. I think I noticed it about 3 times on the game. This was from Buck Pierce after Nathan threw an interception that got returned back to fairly close, and then they ended up Ottawa getting a touchdown. Beautiful interception. Absolutely no hint of PI. It's still not that far into the game, really, and out comes the challenge flag. So I'm thinking I need to put together a training course for coaches on how to challenge. And the first rule is this: trust your eyes, not what you want to have happened. They just keep doing it. Well, maybe something will miraculous. Maybe somehow we missed something and the replay center will save us.
Was it last week one of you said Buck Pierce shouldn't be allowed to have a challenge flag, or was that Dickinson? I can't remember.
Yeah, just give it to someone else. Make him have to sign it out when he wants to use it. All righty. So anything else from you guys on this, or moving along?
Moving along.
Okay. So that took us to game 2, where Hamilton went into Montreal and took away a 26-9 victory. Why didn't you tell us about that, MJ?
So I had to look at the score again because I knew that Hamilton had won, but at no point during the game did I ever feel like it was a sure win. And so I don't know what that says about me as a Ticat fan, but that's the kind of season it's been. But I thought, they kept going on and on about how this is a must win, and it was when you look at the standings. And so very happy that Hamilton was able to pull out that win. If we lived in the same city, I would have delivered you both kazoos, and then we could have just, I know my sister loves the noise, but I was like, what is that? And I thought it was the birds out in my yard, so I had the TV muted. Anyway, one of my favorite things that happened during this game was on the sideline. Alexander, in the third quarter, starts chirping. Here's this guy who is on the sideline, not even dressed, involved. He's not up in the booth. He's down there with the guys, and he is chirping Lawler on the sidelines. And I thought, that's kind of fun. Like, he's in the game. He's into it. My other favorite thing was, for Maltos. Like, I know that the Ticats did win, but I was very happy that if there were to be a lot of points had, that Maltos had all of them. So I got married on the long weekend, and my nephew wanted a selfie with us, and his selfie was the Maltos flex. Happy he was able to do it 3 times.
Yes, he is a fan. We've learned that.
Oh, but I thought this was, like I said, I never at one point felt very secure in this game until I think even into the fourth quarter. As soon as they took the quarterback out and they put Dukes in, I was like, okay, like Montreal's conceding here, so maybe I can start to breathe easy. But where was the defense for the Alouettes? I thought they just got destroyed in that run game. Like, Bell had 20 carries for 156 yards. They had 234 rushing yards, the Ticats. So, and White, 42-yard run. So I just thought like the Owls defense, I think, really let them down. I'd love to hear what you guys thought, what you saw.
Well, I thought sort of like you did. It didn't really feel like it was out of reach until late. It was only 13-9 at the half. Yeah. And Hamilton should have been up a lot more. Their first drive, Bell fumbled on the 1-yard line, and Burns recovered it and returned it back. Their next drive, they were going nicely, and Burns picks them off. So the first 2 drives, they were holding them in it. Morgan is the 4th string, so I didn't expect a lot out of him. Bo didn't look quite as good as I would have expected. He wasn't his normal 300-yard stuff, but I forgot when I was going to throw this to you, Mike, I was going to say the title for this game in my mind was it was a dark and stormy night part 2, because it was pretty much the same as Ottawa from what I was seeing.
Yeah. Lots of weather issues, but those fumbles. But one thing that I felt was interesting was, like, in the second quarter, Morgan's running with this football and he doesn't slide and then fumbles the ball. And I think, you want to prove yourself. You want to go out, coach, I'm the one. Like, if we need someone, Macbeth is still injured, Alexander's chirping on the sidelines. And for him to run in that way and not slide and then lose the ball on top of that, like, you risk getting injury and you fumbled. And I thought, not a great look for trying out to be the starter. Yeah.
Anything to put in here, GT?
As I said, I didn't watch the next game, but reading recaps, they didn't look like they were very exciting. They looked like they were kind of like, Hamilton seemed to have had the biggest running game of this year. It was everybody seemed to be running amok for them. And but other than that, it looked like a kind of a ho-hum game that they won in the end.
Yeah, lots of interceptions, lots of fumbles, lots of pitches, lots of running, I think this was like a gritty game.
Yes, it was that. And to what you said, GT, about the running, Bell was 20 carries, 156 yards, 1 TD, should have been 2, and he was also 5 for 6 and 34 yards in the passing game. So he was the bulk of their offense. Yeah, by far.
Yeah, Lawler.
It was a good game. It wasn't a great game, but it was good in that. No, I shouldn't say a good game. I guess it was an average game, but just the fact that, like MJ said, it didn't feel like it was locked down until quite late, at least held my interest.
I feel like it was
you mentioned
whoever
they put Dukes in there. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say this was the game of whoever can hold on to the ball and get points when they can is going to win, and that just happened to be Hamilton, I think.
Like you said, they pulled Morgan and put Dukes in the 4th, but only for one series, and then they went back to Morgan. Mm-hmm. So there's that, and this was one of the OPIs. Kenny Lawler got called on what was a very obvious, when you looked at it, offensive pass interference. And of course, Milanovic challenged it again. Challenge what you saw and what you see, not what you want. But I feel like with MJ away this week, the original MJ away this week, I'm having to pick up, we almost need to carry on some of her traditions. And one of the things that she loves is talking about the TSN throwing shade with their shots. In this game, you definitely saw it, because there was a period in there where Montreal put Tice in as running back, and he ran for, I think, 3 or 4 first downs in a row. And once he got up and running, every time that wasn't on the play, the camera was on Sean Thomas Erlington on the sideline watching his job going, bye.
And STR is now in the 6th game as of today.
I don't have anything else. How about you, MJ? Anything more from yours?
No, I'm just happy for that. I'm just really grateful for those points. End story.
Good.
And Bo Levi rushing for a touchdown. I mean, that's a miracle. A miracle happened.
Once a decade, like they said. Well, that takes us to the next one where I'll start with a few things because it was Saskatchewan. You may notice that I'm wearing the Obsidians here. I'll see if you can see the number 63 there for Mr. Furland, best lineman in the league. His name's on the back and all. Anyway, the Riders game. It wasn't an offensive powerhouse. It wasn't a shootout, but I thought it was an enjoyable game. As happened in Labor Day, the Riders started kind of slow, and the Bombers early on were really testing, I think it's Kosi, I'm not sure, one of the Onyekas that Saskatchewan had in safety. He's basically their third string safety. Their first two were out. And so Winnipeg was going over in the middle and having some success with it for a while. It got shot down eventually. But at 3:11 of the second quarter, Winnipeg, I think it was a field goal they got at that point to go up 13-3. And then they didn't score after that again. The defense shut them down. And part of that may have had to do with Zach going out. But they were playing well against Zach too. Offense wasn't great. They got one running touchdown and 5 field goals, but just managed to put it together and run out the game. And that's sort of the overview. So I'll give you a chance to jump in with anything you might have seen in the game or highlights or anything. And then I've got other stuff I can talk about if need be.
It's a question I'm curious about. As someone who wears glasses, Olette lost a contact in the first quarter. And I think, do you have extras? They must. But you're out for a play, right? All those little black bits in your eye.
I was impressed with him picking up a contact with those gloves on.
Yeah. Dude, we need to get him some dailies. Why are you wearing hard contacts? But it was really interesting. I forget who it was, if it was Rod Smith or Laplace, kept going on and on about how Oliveira last week was so upset about not getting any touches and how he wanted the ball and he wanted to prove himself. And so he touched the ball 20 for 83 yards. So they did give him that. And they did that even though they knew that the Riders have such a good defense against a run. And so Oliveira got his wish. And Dembski was in the game as well. But I thought Oliveira, he didn't have a touchdown, but he helped them get quite a bit of field position when they needed it. So I thought that, again, TSN, we got it. We get that he wanted this, but that was their storyline and they were waiting for it. And, if he had gotten a touchdown, they would have been so happy. Yes. He ruins their day.
Yes. If the other MJ was here, she would have said, did you know that Brady was not happy?
Right. Yeah.
One of those, was it?
Yeah. We also had another hurdle in this game.
Yeah.
Which was exciting. But I just think Winnipeg, Jefferson had that knockdown, but then called back with a penalty. And I think, okay, if you're going to win football games, you have to have more than a running back and a quarterback. If you are taking dumb penalties, especially on a play those big plays that come back, that makes a big difference no matter how much you run. If you keep getting those penalties, that pushes you back. I didn't know how many penalties they ended up having. But again, you've got...
I haven't checked the numbers. Tell you what, you keep talking and I'll see what I can find out.
But I have here, again, we've got some fumbles happening. We've got PIs that weren't. We've got interceptions happening. Fajardo had fewer. Oh, that's the other game. I was going to say Fajardo had fewer bracelets, but that's on my other notes page. What else did I have? The Bombers didn't give up. Olette got stopped in some short yardage situations, but then comes back and gets a touchdown. So I thought that the Riders responded better to big plays and came back, I think, stronger than Winnipeg could catch up to. I don't think that when Zach left the game. I have here, Strevler is running. Eek. Why? Why is he leading with his head? That is my only note for the fourth quarter.
Yes. And on the penalties thing, it's not as bad as I thought it was. I knew Saskatchewan wasn't too bad. They were 4 for 40. Winnipeg was only 5 for 56. And you're right,
Okay.
in the game, it felt like a lot more than that. They were certainly poorly timed penalties. Mind you, there was a lot of that this weekend, too.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in, I think it's in the next game that we get to. But
the shining star was Campbell for the Riders.
Yeah. He has been a find. I've probably mentioned this 4 or 5 times on here. I was going into this season, I was nervous as hell because they brought him in who could have been a washed-up NFL cornerback, and they brought in Ray at defensive end who's been made of glass, and they've both been... Ray has let off a little bit lately. He's still playing quite well, and Campbell's been just an amazing find. So, yeah, he had 2 of their 4 interceptions that they got.
Yeah, great game for him.
I've got a note here that we were talking last week about, in fact, it was MJ1 who mentioned the fact Bo had done the quick kick, the punt earlier in the season, and that Harris punted to outdo him for twice as much yardage, that they're fighting for MOP. And my note here was, and after Bo ran in 15 yards for a touchdown, Harris decided he was going to do it, but he ended up doing it in chunks of 5. And after the first 2, May said, no, we'll let AJ run it if we're going to run.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we've got someone better for this. Yeah.
So Harris didn't get the touchdown, but he was sure chunking at it.
Yeah. Well, and then Zach Claros threw down the gauntlet. He had 2 tackles in that game, if I'm reading the stats correct. So the quarterbacks are surprising everyone in this Banjo Bowl.
Yes, they were. And it was just a weird one. I mean, again, Lawther's been under fire all for at least the last half of the season so far for missing field goals. He misses a convert, but he goes 5 for 5.
Yeah.
And Castile, who's been one of the best at all distances, goes, what was it, 1 for 3 or 2 for 4? I can't remember, but he missed 2, including one that Alford took back on a fantastic run. And then the second one late in the game, I don't know if this was in the highlights, GT, but he misses the kick. Alford comes out to sort of the end of the end zone, doing the way that he sometimes does, trying to set up blocks, just sort of loping along, jogging, takes it out to about the 3-yard line, gets hit, decides, I'm going to reverse my field, and runs back into the end zone. And then as he's being tackled, realizes, oh my God, and lunges and gets the ball yay far outside the goal line. So the Riders end up first to goal on their own 1. And Harris immediately hits Robustelli for a 45-yard pass down the sideline, and crisis averted.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The Rider fans are not happy with Alfred again. Last year, they were really unhappy with him. Then he came back, and he had some fire in his belly with McRae doing so well in the preseason, and he was doing great. Then he got hurt, and now he's come back, and he fumbled last game, and he almost gave up the safety this game. So his head is back on the chopping block in Riderville.
But I love that realization, but then it's too late to do anything about it. I have a big sad face next to that play. I said, why? And then sad face. And then they ended up at the 1-yard line. So you owe your offense some candy or whatever it is that you bring in.
Oh, definitely. And to me, that 45-yard pass, that's kind of what you said. The Bombers just seem to be able to overcome the bad plays a little better. The Riders seem to be able to overcome the bad plays a little better than the Bombers did in this game. The Bombers just couldn't seem... If everything was rolling, they were doing okay. But if they took a penalty or they got a schneid, then it was not so good. Riders ended up putting Tommy Stevens in too at the end, just with him and Olette to basically run out the time, and that worked. Yep. And then I've got one major complaint, and I don't know if this is true or if it would have worked out or not, but in the fourth quarter there, Riders were down, I think, about their own 30, and Keyshawn Johnson ran past I'm drawing a blank, the halfback there, the good one, home for Winnipeg, ran past him. From what I could see, nobody beyond there. There was a nice pass laid out for it, and Holm grabbed him and yanked him back from it. They got a PI call. Okay, so you get the 20, 30 yards out of the PI. But the problem is, I had Johnson, and I lost in my fantasy team, and I lost by 10 points. And if he took that in for a touchdown, he is 1 for a catch and 7 for the yardage and another 6 for their 7 for the touchdown, and I would have won. So, darn you, Holm. That one grab cost me my game. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Anything you want to say, GT, before we let you jump in and take the lead?
No, I got nothing.
Okay. Alrighty then. That takes us on to the last game, and I'm not sure I like the trend, actually, because last week we mentioned that we had two fairly jubilant co-hosts and one less so. And that's the same thing this week, except I'm the only one who hasn't been the less so I'm kind of worried about this weekend coming up. Gary shocked the world by going into Edmonton and losing 19-31. Tell us about it, GT.
Hey, mirror, mirror on the wall. This was the exact opposite. It was like that, the America calls England the mirror world because everything's the same but different. And this was exactly the same game as a week ago, only the teams were reversed. You could look at it almost identical. The score was almost identical. The play was almost identical. The outcomes were almost identical. Everything was almost identical. And except they were reversed. That's simply the way it was. I will say this. I feel great. I feel great about this loss. I feel great about this timing of this. I'll tell you why. Because I was mad, and I was so mad that I posted about it on Blue Sky. I was so mad that I swore at the television. I was so mad that I was entirely upset with this game. And then I went, that's a good thing. Yeah. That's a good thing because I haven't been this mad at this team in 3 years. That means this team is worth watching again. Because for the last 3 years, if this game had happened, I would have went, it's another one. Here we go again. But that means that this team has actually got me interested enough to be upset with them. Has actually got me to the point where as I said last week, I'm starting to believe. So if that's the case, that's a good thing. I'm okay with the loss. I'm perfectly fine with it. But as I said earlier, we're 8-4. It doesn't really matter in the standings overall. I don't think anybody's going to catch us, and I don't think we're catching the Riders. So we are where we are. And the injuries are the more of the bigger concern. The injuries and VA's play in the last 2 games. I have no problem with him getting pulled with the minute or 2 minutes or whatever they did with left. We talked about that last week. Surprisingly enough, last week's conversation is why didn't they pull Fajardo? This week's conversation is, hey, they pulled VA. It's the mirror image. It's just bizarre, right? It is the bizarro world of the league, back-to-back games. And I could see the same thing happening this week in Ottawa versus BC, back-to-back games. You just never know what's going to happen. So anyways, there's not much to say. What I said last week, it was total domination by the Stampeders. This week, it was total domination by the Elks. I was mad enough to say at one point, midway early in the second quarter, one of my posts was, Stampeders will let them up off the mat. They did another dumb thing where VA overthrew them, or they took a penalty or something, and they had to do another 2 and out where they had 4 in a row. And then I said, they let the Elks off the mat. This is going to come back to haunt them. And on the next play, it was the 90-yard run, and it was over. That 90-yard run, and the game was over. Didn't matter what else happened after that. And then the next play was a 47-yard run, and my text was, please learn to tackle. The tackling was atrocious. It is what it is. It's a burn-the-tape kind of game. And we can talk about individual plays all we want throughout, and I'm sure you guys want to talk about a few of them. But to me, the game was, as I say, it was dominance by the Elks. It was the exact opposite of the game before. That's what it is. Burn it, move on. We have the bye at a good time to get over it and then come back. And then we have 6 more games to win 4 of them and solidify second place.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, you're right. It was mostly a running game. I mean, Fajardo passed for 153 yards, but I'm just looking at this now here. Rankin was 16 carries, 204 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So,
yeah, well, I will say that made me a little crazy because they were talking about, he's running all over the place. And I'm like, it's 2 plays. They're up because of 2 plays. Other than that, Edmonton's offense had not done a whole lot until late in the game.
Yeah. In fact, I'll let you go, MJ, but I just want to say it reminded me in some ways almost identical to the game that Edmonton played in Saskatchewan last year, where they ran for like 160 yards against a great run defense. And it was the same thing. 2 big runs where they caught the defense with nobody deep. They broke the second level, and it was just, he broke the second level and he was basically gone. The first one, definitely. The second one, there was, I think, a safety that came in and tried for a tackle. But, other than that, you take those 2 away. Yeah, he's still got probably 70, 80 rushing yards in the game, but and that's what drove it up. And same sort of thing with it. So they've got the speed in the backfield that if you let them get through when you don't have anyone on a basically your third level, they can toast you.
Yeah.
Well, my notes for this game were, okay, the Elks looked prepared. They looked confident. They looked like, because usually they look, anyway. And then the Stamps looked flustered. I was really, and I shouldn't be disappointed, but I was really disappointed because some of their penalties seemed like desperate penalties. And I thought, who is this team? So I don't want to say I'm a Calgary fan, but I can't help but cheer for them because I live here. But I just thought, like UGT, I was really mad at this team because I do think that I have really invested in them this year. Cheering for VA, seeing what the team is doing, Dietrich Mills being there. I really didn't have a lot of good things to say about Dave Dickinson, but I feel like he's got something good going. But I just thought that this game, the Stamps just seemed absolutely flustered, no matter, maybe not every single play, obviously. But it just felt like, the first quarter they were okay. And then it just started to fall apart. I feel like they couldn't connect. And then they started to get frustrated. They had these short runs. They couldn't connect in their receiving. But then they let some of those big runs happen. And so I thought, okay, so when your game isn't running on your offensive level or your defense, and then you have a kicker miss, that's really hard to respond to. And I thought Edmonton did a great job of taking advantage of that.
Yeah, I thought maybe, I don't know about turning point, but there was a big point early on. It might, my memory's terrible, might even been the first drive where Calgary marched down and got a touchdown pass to Brooks. And then on replay, it was overturned because the ball did hit the ground and bobbled a little bit. The way I was talking last week about what I thought happened with the Claricius catch in that game. So they get the field goal out of it, but they just never seem to be able to regroup and get the offense going after that.
Yeah, no, I think that actually was the turning point of the game, because I think if they had scored on that first drive, their offense would have been okay, and they would have felt like they were in command again and rolling. And instead, it looked like VA was, I don't know if flustered is the right word, MJ, but he was certainly not on, and he hasn't been on for 2 games now. And he goes through these lulls, and we've seen it before. When his head's off, he's not even close to being on. Hopefully he can get his head back on. The big thing was at some point around that time, just after that, Edmonton would just got more physical than Calgary and was just being more physical. And Dickinson admitted it after the game in the post game. They got beat up on both sides, both lines, both sides, and they weren't able to respond to Edmonton's physicality and the momentum. And football's like that. And if you want to get that momentum and you're winning, it's really hard to come back out and punch back. You need something to happen, and they didn't have anything happening.
TSN in the third, or I think it was the fourth quarter, close up right on Dave Dickinson. I think this was another Philpott play where there was a flag for defensive interference. Something happened. And so Dave obviously didn't agree or miscall. I forget what the call was. And
it was an OPI on Philpott.
Yeah. And so just close up of his face. And he was just staring down the official, wasn't saying anything. And then TSN, the shade they throw. When the Stamps got called for misconduct on one of their, I think it must have been on the O-line because it was number 64. Close up of Dave, and he is mad, and now he is talking to the ref. And I thought, TSN has been waiting all game for this moment to show Dave Dickinson start to lose his cool, and he held it together. And then they got him.
Yeah.
I think that OPI call was weak, really, really weak. I don't blame him. He was saying, "Can you just watch it again? Like, Show it, like, what? Look at it. Just look at it. And then the second one, at that point in time, he was throwing his hands up. It's like, we're not helping ourselves, but you're not helping us either.
Well, and earlier in the end of the third quarter, the Elks had that punt, and then the Stamps got the no yards call. And I have to go back and look at it again, maybe. But I thought, I disagree with it. That was close. Like, I think the player was within 5 yards. So I guess technically you have to flag that. But there was no way he was coming towards the ball or the receiver. He was there was no way he could have contacted. And so I guess the rule is, yes, 5 yards. But so I think to have a call like that where it is like, if you had missed it, would anyone have been, I don't know.
Wasn't as bad as like Montreal, where Montreal at one point in the game took 25 yards of penalty after an interception and gave Hamilton the ball on Montreal. What? I think I remember that no yards that you called. I agree it was a penalty because he was within the 5 yards, but they called him a 15-yarder, and I thought they were still told to call them. It had moved from a few years ago that it bounced. It was 5 yards, and otherwise it was 15. They said then they're all 15, but at that point, if I remember right, the rule said unless the player is actively trying to exit the zone, not make the tackle, and then it's a 5-yarder, and that's what I saw happen there. Was he realized he was within the zone and just ran past the returner, trying to get out of it. So I thought it should have been 5, not 15.
I can see why Dickinson would be upset because all of these things piling up, and you start to think it's hard to coach when you feel like the game is against you.
I get it, but I understood why Dickinson was the angriest man in the CFL the last couple of years. This year, I don't get it, and he still is.
Yeah.
He's passionate.
Yes, passionate.
Yes. A completely non-related football moment. There was a moment that just threw me. There was just in between plays, and they've got a shot of a player standing there in the field, and I see this little white thing like a flake of snow coming down, and I think, snow in Edmonton? Now? I thought it was like 20 degrees still. And then it kind of lifted back up, and I realized, oh no, it's one of those little floater seeds. But for a moment, I felt, oh, fall is here.
Not yet. Please, not yet. No, I thought it was snowing for the Ottawa game. So
well, it was closer to snowing when Ottawa played Calgary in Calgary, that first one. Yeah. And then the other thing that I think is worth mentioning is I agree with you, GT, about him pulling VA. No sense getting him hurt there. Just before that, they'd taken 2 sacks in a row and ended up 100%. With 3rd and 31. Same thing that we talked about when Calgary stomped on Saskatchewan and they took Harris out with 3-4 minutes ago. People are complaining, oh, you can't give up. You got to go to the end. And I know VA was upset, and I think Harris was upset, but smart move.
Yeah. And it wasn't just VA. They also pulled Mills. Yeah. They also pulled, I believe they also pulled, although it wasn't really shown, but I think Philpott or Barnes, one of the Canadian receivers, was out because they showed Janus running around there. You just saw the name on the back of the jersey, and he's like the backup Canadian receiver. So one of the other 2 guys was out as well. So they did the full basketball. It was like, second string will go in there.
And then again, TSN right up in VA's face about it.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks,
Throwing the shade as he chews his nail. And I pitied the poor coach that was beside him that was getting the earful the whole time. Just staring straight ahead. No, he definitely did not look happy. And that is TSN's trademark, a tight close-up.
I will say, though, like at the end of the game with the bench brawl shenanigans, I thought, okay, at least that ended better. Well, we'll see. I haven't heard any news about any penalties or fines or anything versus that BC Montreal one we had earlier in the season. So well done, guys, on not taking it too far.
I think penalties and fines come out on Wednesdays, don't they? So we might hear about it tomorrow.
So we still might hear.
I think they come out Wednesdays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Football, those little moments when you see somebody playing football and being smart about it, and I love those. And there was a play in this game where Julian Grant caught a short pass over the middle. I think it was like 2nd and 8 or something. And he was right near the sticks, and he was fighting for yardage and sort of that back and forth kind of thing. And you could see, because they had the camera from the side, you could see over and see his eyes lock on where the marker was and realize, oh, I got to get down here and just drop and keep the first down. Those are the little things that make winning football teams. Yeah. I think that's everything I've got. It's
Yep.
I will say this. I think that personally, I'd like to know what you think about Hutchins being out, GT. I don't think he is fantastic. I don't think one player, even on the line, makes that big of a difference. I think what happened here was it was a combination of basically a trap game where they had just thumped on the Elks and probably in their minds thought they could do it again and knew they had a bye coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they weren't in that game the way they needed to be.
Yeah, no, their heads weren't in it from the, and that's why I say if they had scored that first touchdown, it would have kept their heads in it. But after that, I think they just lost it. And then they couldn't get anything going after that. And it became a trap game. I don't know that it started out, but it certainly became one in the middle of it. So I'm not sweating about this loss. It's burn the tapes, as I said, and move on and go from there. But Hutchings is a huge part of it. I do think that I mean, he's a key player. It's like, it's going to be, if he is out for any length of time, and hopefully not, it will be really tough now that with Flo gone as well. But I think Flo's more important overall for a couple things. I will also say one other thing I will say about this is the big experiment's done. I don't think he's adding anything to the team at all. This is 2 games now where I've watched him and I haven't seen him. And when I've seen him, he's been out of place or missing a tackle or something. So I don't think Big Hill's the guy. And they're saying he's working his way back in, but I would just continue to go with tights there and not worry about it. He's great on the sidelines. He's a great coach. He's a great mentor, all that stuff. But over 2 games so far, I haven't seen anything that leads me to believe he's going to be a player again.
Yeah. I had in my notes, Adam Big Hill. Was he even there?
Yeah.
So
I never heard his name called. And I did see him on the field, but it wasn't anything fantastic. On Hutchings, he's like I said, I think he is a fantastic player. I think having him out definitely hurt them. I don't think that he could have specifically made the difference in that game. And I do think that going ahead, he will probably be less of a dominant force just because with Flo out of there, he'll see more double teams. They'll be able to dedicate a lot more to him on the inside. And we'll see how, I mean, I've seen him. There was, I think it was the Saskatchewan game where they double teamed him and he just tossed the 2 guys off and walked up the middle. So, but he'll get a lot more of that.
I think part of that running game that Edmonton had was the fact that Hutchins wasn't there because they could concentrate in the middle and Calgary's ends had to crash down more than they normally would because he wasn't there to eat up those double teams. And so their ends had to play closer to the middle of the field. And that gave the end around for Rankin to go run around on a couple of those plays. So I think that makes a difference. And that will continue to make a difference going forward if he's not there eating up the double teams in the middle.
But it's not, I don't think it's any kind of a death nail for the defense there. It's tougher. Like we said, every team goes through it. We could go through and talk about, pick a big player on every team, I think, who's been injured at some point through this year. So
100%.
I have no doubt that they'll come back. I mean, that's the thing is, I personally don't have any doubt. I think they got BC after the bye and they'll come out and walk all over them. The other opinion that's out there is that it's possible that, that even after we're halfway into the season, some people are still saying, oh, maybe that's been a mirage. Maybe that's been a mirage. Maybe this is just the 2 games of EA couldn't play and they'll be down next time. I don't expect to see that. No. I'll tell you my pick right now, barring some kind of injury to VA for that game next week, will be Calgary over BC.
Yeah, I would take that. Coming out of the bye, I would take that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, VA against that BC defense, I may be my fantasy quarterback that week. All right. I think that's about it then. That's covered it all. We just got to talk about what's coming up.
Okay.
And so the games this week are predictions. Game 1, Winnipeg goes into Hamilton. Zach was at practice, but didn't participate today from what I understand. I haven't seen the Hamilton injury report, but I don't think they've got anybody new hurt from the game. Your prediction?
Hamilton.
Hamilton has always played well against Winnipeg in Hamilton, even when Winnipeg was much more of a juggernaut. So, yeah, I think so. This one, I think, might be the toughest game of the weekend to pick. The next one, and these are the Friday night doubleheader because we're 2 games a day again.
Yeah.
Ottawa goes out to BC. What happens in that rematch?
BC. It's really tough to win back-to-back. And it was really tough to win back-to-back when you're flying across the country. And it's really tough to win back-to-back with a quarterback that still is, no matter whether he had the crumb back last week or not, is still very inconsistent. So, yeah, I just think BC's got to win that.
Yeah, Butler, Hatcher, Alway had 8 tackles last week. I'm going to have to go with BC as well.
Mm-hmm. And see, to me, this one should be easy. I would have thought it'd be easy, but after that game last week, this is what my head's been working on, trying to go through this. And I even went back and watched some of the game, but unfortunately, my usual whining, give us some all 24 shots. You can't tell what the defenses are actually doing. So was the wind and the rain throwing Nathan off that much, or did Ottawa find a way to confuse him, and will they do it again next week? Because it'll come down to that. I don't expect the BC defense to play any better than they did. But I think probably the offense inside in the dome, or even if it's open, it'll be because it's sunny and warm and that.
Mm-hmm.
Good conditions. I got to make up ground on you two, but am I brave enough? I don't know what I'm going to do in my personal ones, but for this show, I'm picking Ottawa.
Okay.
I'm going to say I have faith in the. How can you not pick the Crumb Kid?
He's another Crumb back?
I'm official. We got to get a name for us Crumb fans because I'm officially one now. He put so much heart and soul into that. It's almost like some kid out there that doesn't know any better. Alrighty.
It's like the Goonies.
Yes. Edmonton game 3, the first one on the Saturday. Edmonton into Toronto. As far as we know, it's Nick Arbuckle starting for Toronto.
Well, I'm taking the Argos. I feel like as much momentum as Edmonton thinks they have, I still think coming off of a bye and enough time, and they're getting a few players back on the Toronto. Sluka's coming back, from what I understand, on their defense. So I think they'll be better, and they will, I'll take the Argos. I think it'll be close. I do think it'll be close. And I think it's going to be a relatively exciting game. But I am going to take the Argos.
I think I'll jump in ahead of you, MJ. I think I'm going with the Argos as well for this reason. I think that Edmonton has a better defense than Toronto does right now, maybe, based on yesterday's game and the last 3 or 4. But they don't have an offense that can run with the Argos. So the only way they win this game is they can't win it by a couple of big runs like they did this last weekend. They have to find a way to slow it down and keep the ball out of Arbuckle's hands. I think that they'll both score points. I think it'll be close, but I think that there will be a couple of more punts from Edmonton than from Toronto, and that's going to be the difference.
Yeah, I have on here in my notes for Edmonton, how many 2-and-outs can you have and still win a game? I really want to cheer for the Elks, but what would MJ do? I don't know. This is really tricky. I'm going to say the Argos as well.
See, I was just going to say, I'm not sure because I don't know how much. We're all fans here, and I don't know if you heard this story because you came in a little bit later, but the reason I'm old man rather than the name I really am is the man I really am is way too much of a Rider fan to be impartial. So I created this character to be impartial, and that lets me talk about things and criticize the Riders when I need to and say good things about the Bombers and all that. But with all that said, I'm not sure MJ1 could pick the Argos.
I know. This is why I really struggle, but Arbuckle is there. They're coming off of a bye week.
Okay. Well, hey, she'll have to deal with it.
She can do the TSN close-up of my face when I'm wrong or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when we get to the social media bit, you're just going to give her address again anyway, so she can deal with it. It's her pick. Nice job, MJ, picking the Argos. All righty. And then the next one, I have no idea what the weather is going to be like for this. I haven't looked, but it is in Saskatchewan, Saturday afternoon, Montreal into Saskatchewan. It looks like probably no Davis Alexander yet. He was still limited on the injury report, and they have brought MBT back off of it. Maybe the bias arguing in the back of my head, But I don't see, as good as that Montreal defense is, I don't see them being able to win with MBT. So I'm going with the Riders in this one.
Same. I'm Riders on this one too. I can't see Montreal running through the Saskatchewan defense enough to get enough points.
How about you, GT? Are you going to speak it into existence and say Montreal so that Calgary gains a game on?
I can't see Montreal winning this game, except the Riders always have one bad one at home. Every year they have one bad one at home. I don't know if that was the Calgary game earlier in the year. And usually it's when they have a bad one at home, it's against a bad quarterback or a fluky quarterback or whatever. So that's the reason I'm picking Montreal.
Okay, speak it into being. and I cannot disagree with you. This is a different regime, so I don't know. But yeah, traditionally, Saskatchewan in any given year, whatever their record is, they will usually come away with a victory that there's no way they should ever have had it, and they will usually come away with a loss that they should have been a walk away. So I'm still waiting for it this season, and it could very well be this time.
Yeah, I may be wrong and it may hurt my record, but whatever. I just think that I just kind of feel like, this, as you said, they always seem to have one of those games at home, and it's usually against a quarterback that has absolutely no right in beating them, which is MBT this week. So that's kind of how I feel.
Especially this season.
An awful lot of people that picked Calgary and BC this last week, as just as certainly as I'm sitting here, or as anybody sitting here picking any of these games. You never know. Yeah. What's that old saying about that's why they play the game?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And it can go weird. You were mentioning earlier in the game, MJ, about, when a team gets off to a good lead and then sometimes they trail off a bit and what that does to them. I can tell you from my coaching days in the minor leagues, I used to just dread getting up to a quick 1 or 2 touchdowns, and my focus was always on keeping the guys level-headed, and it's about playing your game and playing hard, because I lost over the years probably half a dozen games we shouldn't have lost because we got way up and everybody, look at this, we're running away with it, and frankly, early in my career when I was learning, I felt like that too. And then they start chipping back at you and, we got to turn it on again now. Well, you can't.
Too late.
Yep. Gonna be fun. Hope we get some good games this weekend.
And not a super Saturday. We are spreading it out.
Yes, exactly.
6 hours each is okay.
Yeah. My butt can handle that on the couch. All righty then. I think that pretty much covers it. Thanks you again for coming in and coming off the bench, MJ, too. Maybe one of these days we'll have to do a 4-person one with the both of you. See how that works out.
Boy.
That would be, a 7-hour show?
Yeah.
That would be a typical phone call that we would have.
Yeah. I think going into Grey Cup, we have to have everybody together, all 5 of us.
That's a great idea. We'll do a bonus episode.
That'd be great.
I like it. I'll make a note of it when we're done here.
Well, thanks again for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
You're quite welcome. Any closing thoughts before you give MJ ones?
I picked the Argos, but Argos suck.
Yeah.
No, MJ can be mad at me all she wants, but if I lose, I'll just eat that.
Sure.
But yeah, no, if you want to chirp at me, just like Alexander from the sidelines, you can do it through MJ.
Yeah. Sports and Plants at bluesky.social.
Yeah.
That's Sports and Plants, not bluesky.social, whatever. Yes, exactly. She'll probably be less annoyed with you if the Argos win the game.
Yeah. Let's hope for that.
Okay. And how about you, GT? Any closing thoughts?
As always, you can find me at GT Barnum at bluesky.social or whatever the rest of it is. And hopefully, I haven't made too many people upset with my long-winded rant about my favorite company.
I can see I should never show you where my pension checks come from. Anyway, yes, and I'm at Oldman-SAC and Blue Sky, all the rest of it, the Blue Sky social stuff. The show is the CFL Outsiders on X, and Blue Sky, and we are now the CFL Outsiders on Instagram, and we'll know more about that when MJ comes back. You can get me on the CFL subreddit. If you're not on there, you should. It's a great little exchange of ideas that's purely CFL, and I'm on there as r/Oldman Shouting Cloud. Other than that, please check out Friday morning for my Old Man Plays CFL Fantasy. Yes, it was a terrible week for me, but it was a terrible week for everybody. Other than that, hope you have a great weekend. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Until next week, for MJ and GT, this is Old Man saying, get the hell off my lawn.